Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining today. I see some people are getting in to the webinar now, so we'll give people 1 or 2 minutes here to get in and get settled, and then we'll get going. Thank you for being here. And we'll just give people about 1 more minute here to join, and then we'll get going. Thank you for joining. All right, why don't we kick it off then, and I think people will continue to join. Thank you for being here today. My name is Alex Rosen, and we are very excited for this webinar today of the brave new world of the AI and recruiting and where we're going. So we'll get going here. Before we get going, thank you for joining once more. We love questions today. We'll try to take as many as possible. If you look in Zoom, there's a Q&A tab that you can hit, and those will come to us, and we'll take them likely more towards the end, as many as possible, and you will get the recording here, so watch out for that. So a little bit about Sense, for those of you that don't know us. We are a recruiting technology company focused on communication and the automation. There's 1,000 and more customers using Sense now. We're talking to 100 million candidates now per year, powering many hires, and we have some awesome customers that we're very proud to work with. So lots of good things here that we can now build on top of with this new world. As I mentioned, my name is Alex. I'm one of the co-founders of Sense, and run the product team here. So I am here like you, mostly to learn from my co-panelists here. So Neerav, I'll turn it over to you to say hi.
Hi, I'm Neerav Kingsland. I lead up strategic accounts at Anthropic, our major partnerships with enterprises and governments, including Sense, who we've been thrilled to partner with, and eager to dig in, learn more about your field, and talk a little bit about the future of AI.
Awesome. Thank you, Neerav, and thank you for being here. So before we jump in, so as many of you know, Neerav's company is one of our kind of key partners at Sense, that we've built any of the things that we'll talk about today with. So I wanted to kind of pass it over to you kind of first, Neerav, to kind of talk about and kind of walk us through what do you guys do?
Great. Awesome. Thanks so much, Alex. So a little background on Anthropic. First and foremost, we're a group of researchers. Our team built GPT-3 while we were at OpenAI. So this is the actual research paper that created GPT-3. And everybody in purple now works at Anthropic. So the core technical leads are now technical leads at Anthropic. And the overall project director was Dario Amodei, who's our CEO. So it was the leadership team out of the large language model group at OpenAI and the safety group out of OpenAI that spun out to make a concentrated bet on safe large language models. Very quickly on how we make these models safe, we had a breakthrough research development called constitutional AI that we released a paper on in December. The way these models are usually trained is you do a big web crawl over the internet, and that's how they get their intelligence. Unfortunately, the internet has a lot of toxic bias text in it, so you need to do then a set of fine tuning to make the models more humane, empathetic, and follow the values that we'd want them to follow. What most companies do is they hire thousands of contractors to give kind of thumbs up or thumbs down on the model outputs, and then they use that data to retrain the model. What we've been able to do with constitutional AI is we can just get a small group of experts to evaluate the model's behavior. And then we actually have the model create tens of thousands of synthetic examples and then train on that. So instead of having to rely on kind of a black box of contractors across the globe, we can get the very best people in the world to get feedback to our model and then scale up their feedback. And this has led to a much safer model. A couple other competitive advantages that I think have been meaningful to Sense and other customers we work with. First is speed. When you're working with customers and client-facing consumers, speed matters a lot to the user experience. Our large model is 4 times as fast as GPT-4, and a smaller, faster model is twice as fast as their smaller and faster model. Did we miss one slide there? Sorry. If we didn't, I will go back to it.
Well, we may have hidden that one. No, I'm
No
sorry.
worries.
Yeah, keep
Great.
going.
And then lastly is Claude is clever. And so one thing that we've gotten a lot of feedback from customers on, which I think could be really important in the recruiting and HR context, is the humanity with which the model brings in terms of engaging in complex topics. So we actually had the Brookings Institute, a think tank in the US, put on a panel, and they invited David Autor, who's an MIT labor economist, and they had a econ policy roundtable with David Autor, Claude, and ChatGPT. So it was one human expert talking to 2 models, and you can see here they said they thought Claude outperformed ChatGPT. And so when it comes to talking about very complex issues in a humane way, playing a very specific role, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback that our model's able to do that in a safe, responsible way. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Neerav. Awesome stuff. And and kind of getting into why are we partnered up. It's many of these things that really made sense. Kind of choose the Anthropic language model for our generative AI features. We were really blown away by this. Actually, we met this team back in the fall, kind of before the whole Chat GPT craze kind of began, and I was really kind of blown away by the magic and where we've gone. And I'll talk a lot about this today and sort of what this means for recruiting, but I'll touch on just one point here now, which is really I think it's so important, particularly in the HR context and the recruiting context, to really focus on safety. The truth is, and this might not be what you think that I was gonna say, is that things actually can go wrong here. Kind of there can be bias and there can be issues here, and we've really focused at Sense through our partnership to really mitigate those as much as possible, which makes us the perfect team. So today we're going to be jumping into a ton of that. So just kind of a roadmap of today. We're going to talk about some of the big kind of future of the space and kind of where we're going with AI. Things are moving so fast, and they're almost, to me, they're almost changing daily, that it's kind of great to get a master class. And then I'll talk about a bit about sort of what does this mean for recruiting and kind of the way that your teams can use these tools. And then we'll finish with some demos of things that are actually out now and live that you can use very soon. So let's jump in here, Neerav. So I wanted to kick it off with sort of what is the current state of AI, and in your mind, from us and lots of our customers, it kind of seemed like we got here very fast. One day there wasn't this, and the next day there was. Sort of, how did we get here so fast, and where are we today?
Yeah, over the past 4 to 5 years, there's been some major breakthroughs. And about 3 years ago, our team wrote a paper called Scaling Laws, which they looked at these small models that weren't performing well. And they had a rough theory that if you just kept on making them bigger and giving them more data, they were going to keep getting smarter. So I do think there was a group of people at Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, and others who about 4 to 5 years ago were like, whoa, we're not there yet, but all we probably need is more data and more hardware, and we'll get here. And so I think that was really the bet that these large language model companies made, was that scale would get you here. And then, in terms of where we are and the promise of what this could be, one thing I like to think about is who has access to what in our society. And, over 200 to 300 years ago, physical goods were very expensive. So if you owned 3 pairs of shoes, you were probably fairly wealthy. Not the case anymore. But we haven't seen that for services. So, getting access to great legal, medical advice, financial advice, those aren't available to all people. And I think one of the big promises of LLMs is that we can increase the quality and decrease the price of services, and that could have great gains for the world, and people who don't have those things right now.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and we've even seen that on the Sense team. People who might have had to ask one of our consultant experts, are now able to kind of go to tools like Claude, and maybe get those answers where they couldn't. So in terms of the state of the art, besides of course Sense, where are you seeing kind of companies use this today, and all the cool
Yeah,
ways?
I think the big jump we're seeing is initially there was a lot of demand for things that I would call autocomplete. So, when you're typing in Gmail and it gives you the next word, that's autocomplete. Now, LLMs can do that with like next paragraph or next page. And that's an important use case, but I think that's kind of the first step in deploying these models. And what we're seeing now is people are much more moving towards a virtual assistant model, which is how can you get the LLM to really empower your best employees and scale what they're able to do. So we've been working with Notion on this, Slack with this, and if I give you maybe a specific example, think of the idea of like any given employee, it's just very, very difficult for them to remember all the policies, all the strategy memos, all the brand briefs, and so forth when they're interacting. So we were talking to one client who does wealth management, and they were like, our wealth advisors are awesome, but they can never keep up with everything. Now, through a natural language inquiry, they could, using Notion or Slack or another platform, they could literally go in and say, what's the performance of the S&P 500 over the past 20 years? And the model will just answer that. And so you have data and information available on your fingertips. That is a big jump from where we were with Googling, hitting links, and then having to read the whole document. And so I really see that that's probably the next wave of where we're hitting here is virtual assistants who have the whole corpus of enterprise's knowledge being able to fuel their employees to do more and better.
Very cool. And on the other side, so I'm sure that everyone here has read a ton about, concerns, kind of the kind of dark side of all this. What are some of the kind of common concerns that people have thereof? And more importantly, which ones of them are valid that we should be thinking about?
Yeah, this is really the whole purpose of Anthropic's existence is to make sure that as AI scales, it's deployed in a safe and responsible way. I can kind of think of two categories of concerns that we need to take very, very seriously. One is near-term implications. You can think about political information, abrupt shifts in the economy, toxic or biased language, and we take those very, very seriously. And then the other are the bigger risks. Yeah, you might have seen there was a statement about existential risk, national security. Governments are thinking very heavily about those, and we think those are real issues too. We think they're both super important, and we actually think that the way to solve both of them probably has similar technological solutions. And those are twofold. One is what we call alignment research, which is you're using things like human feedback and AI feedback to get the model to do what you want. So, that's a lot of human experts telling the model that was a good response, that was a bad response, and helping it do what we want it to do. The other big branch of safety is called interpretability. And that is actually looking at the physical, quote unquote, neurons of the model, like giving it an MRI and trying to figure out at the physical level, can we understand why it's doing what it's doing? And if we can understand that, then we can alter those physical layers to make the model do what we want. So I think both the near-term and long-term risks need to be taken very seriously, and groups like Anthropic and others are working very hard on both alignment and interpretability to get some breakthrough solutions.
Awesome. And what about jobs? The people on this call, obviously, jobs are their day-to-day, right? They're hiring people. They have jobs themselves. Should we be concerned about our jobs?
Yeah, I think the way I think about this is we've had, many major technical revolutions, the industrial revolution, the farming revolution, and those are times of pretty big change. So, 90% of Americans used to be farmers, not so anymore. And those times of change can be abrupt, and they can be hard. And I think as a government, as a society and government, we need to think very hard about the regulatory environment that makes that go well. Because when we get to the other side of these transitions, they tend to be really great: increased wealth, increased happiness, increased meaning. And I feel that way, that the best version of AI will get us there. And so we need to think about that. I think for the most part, the virtual assistant model is what we'll see in this next wave of generation, which is really fueling, great individuals and companies. But I do think we need to be honest that, some jobs may not exist in 10 years that do exist now. And we need to think about retraining, support, and then helping those people thrive in a new economy.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, and we'll talk more about kind of that and recruiting also. So, final question for you here, Neerav. Again, where do you see us going next? What's coming up
Yeah,
in
so
your world?
I'll, maybe do a little recruiting. I don't know the full scope of what you all do, but I obviously do a lot of recruiting in my life. And we've all been in that moment where, you're getting onto your HR platform, you're running into an interview or a recruitment meeting, you're kind of underprepared, and you're like, if only I'd had a half an hour to like really prep for this, I could do a much better job. I could customize my pitches to the person I'm talking to. I would better understand their needs. We're just time constrained. And so when I think about, a recruitment virtual assistant, imagine if they took, the person's LinkedIn profile, any notes from the previous rounds of interviews, and all of that was just summarized and given to you as you walk into that meeting. I think there's a way to harness all the information we're getting, and through virtual HR assistants, allow us to do our jobs better. And so I'm pretty excited about that in terms of making all our lives easier and providing more value to the people we work with and for. We already hit replacing and creating jobs, so I'll skip over that. And then in terms of start preparing now, I do think there'll be a big advantage to companies who move from like the autocomplete AI world to the virtual assistant AI world faster, because you'll just be powering your employees to do more. And so I would really encourage you to kind of take that, heuristic or framing of a virtual agent and think about how that could maybe fuel your company's success.
Yeah. And final question for you here. How good are these things kind of get? We've obviously, again, just all been amazed in the last 6 months. It felt like we went from 0 to 60. And, of course, there was a lot of work that had gone into that to get us here. But when you and your team look at the next couple years even more, how good can this get?
Yeah, I think they're going to get more and more powerful. Like, if you just take the fact that groups like NVIDIA are making more powerful computer chips. So if we did nothing, like on our research side, and just said we're going to upload our same models onto the new hardware that comes out, we would likely see 5 to 10x, power gains over the next couple of years just from that alone. So there's a lot of model growth baked in to the next couple of years that I think is just going to happen. It is a little hard to predict what that means in every model jump. Like the creators of GPT-2 couldn't quite predict what GPT-3 would have when it had more power. But I think, a general way to think about it is it'll just be broadly more intelligent. So the models now still hallucinate a bit. They can make things up. They don't always catch your question right. And I think they'll be broadly higher performing over the next couple of years. And, you'll have a better virtual assistant in your company because the models will be smarter and more effective.
Thank you. Yeah, exciting. Well, awesome. So thank you, Tara, for kind of taking us on a tour of this cutting edge. And I just wanted to take some time now, and I see some good questions coming in here too that I'll kind of cover as we go here, and sort of what does all this mean for recruiting now? And at Sense, obviously, we think a lot about this, and how we kind of frame this with this kind of amazing general purpose technology that we now have access to, and it's now kind of our job and our peers' jobs to kind of distill this down into kind of tools that you can use and tools that you can monetize for your companies. So in kind of as we've thought about this, there's some sort of kind of core pillars here that we think about with generative AI, particular sense, and the way that it can help. And one is, I'm sure that I don't have to tell you, but recruiters are really busy, right? They have 1,000 tasks on their plate. They have follow up, they have calls, they have texts, they have emails, and at Sense, this was really where we began, and sort of our purpose at Sense was sort of like, how much of the kind of rote work can we automate away, so a recruiter can focus on what they're really good at, and they can spend more time talking to candidates, and really helping them find the best job, and helping your company fill jobs too. And there's a lot of work that almost feels like it gets in the way of that day to day. And we think there's a lot of opportunity there. And the way that I think about it is, I'm sure that we all would prefer it if our recruiter teams, every single person had a scheduler, a coordinator on their team who could do these tasks. And going to what Neerav said, we think that these agents and these personal assistants are becoming that, where it's like sort of every person has their desk, but they have a team sort of on their computer that can do this work for them, again, without you having to hire more people, which we don't necessarily want to always do. The second thing is, I always always want to ground it in the candidate experience. Candidates want things to be personalized. They don't want to receive very general outreach that's hi, call me. They want to feel like you have gone to their LinkedIn, read their resume, and really crafted that job towards them. But of course, that's not always possible with all these tasks. And again, we think this is what's it's good at here. And then also, we think that these tools are amazing at really as new recruiters join, as new people join the company, getting them to kind of expert level faster, right? We all have these folks on our teams, who've just been doing this for a long time, and they're really, really good at it because they picked up all these, tips and tricks and knowledge. But we can get people there faster now, and that I think is a big part of the promise over the next couple years. And then also even those experts, maybe we're not going to make them even better, but we're going to make them faster. So this is a picture that I love. This is actually from a movie, but it's sort of meant to be a picture of a bunch of people with sort of manual calculators and typewriters on Wall Street back in the 60s. And so I think that if I had seen this picture back then, or if we'd seen this and then we had seen in the 90s something like Microsoft Excel come out, I'd have thought, great, all these jobs are going away, right? We no longer need these rows of dozens and hundreds of people at desks who are doing calcs all day, because we now have this amazing tool that can do these models for us. That is obviously not what happened. Actually, finance jobs, math jobs have exploded in that time, and it was almost like Neerav had mentioned, often these new technology revolutions actually lead to more jobs, and at first they seem like they're going to take away jobs. But I think what we encourage our customers to really think about is jobs are going to change for sure. There's obviously no longer tables of folks at these manual calculators, but I'm pretty confident that there will be this next wave of hiring, and we're going to be hiring both for AI jobs and for new industries that we can't even necessarily predict now that this will unleash. And so what are these tools good at, right? And this is really what it comes down to, because tools like Claude, tools like ChatGPT, they can't do everything, but they are really good at a few things, and that's what we're building into Sense now. One is obviously it's right in the name. We're really good at generating content. So we think like anywhere there's a text box or an outreach going out, a message to a candidate, a message to the hiring manager, a job description being posted, these are things that this can just make faster, right? Text, it is certainly faster than I can type. It's really, really good at summarizing, so there's obviously in the recruiting world, there's oodles and reams of data coming into your desk each day, about candidates, about jobs, about feedback you're getting from candidates, interview feedback, and so on. And those things, if we're all being honest, we often just gloss over it because there's too much to read. And we think that generative AI can really help us to summarize all this, and also make sure again that when you come in each day, there's this agent helping you to really focus on the top things. And then search, again, this is sort of a new paradigm of search that we're getting into, where you can ask much more general questions and find the right candidates, potentially that again you may not have been able to find with just a Boolean search or a keyword based search. At the same time, I think that we should be a bit concerned here. I mean, this is new technology, and it pays to be cautious, and it pays to really think about the folks that you're partnering with, which is what we did at Sense, with this team. And some things that we're seeing people ask, and we encourage people to ask as you bring on these new tools at your company. One is sort of, how is the AI tool part of your recruiting workflow? I've found that there's some things like Claude Console, Chat GPT are really powerful, but it's not really in my workflow too. So as time has gone on, I find myself using these not as much, because I don't want to tab over, I don't want to copy paste, and so on and so forth. So it's really something to think about. Sort of how can these come into the products that you use today. Two is ethics and bias. We had talked about that a bit, but we really want to be sure that we're auditing here, and we're monitoring the bias that is potential, and we've thought a lot about that sense in the way this gets built. One is that we for now at least we always want to have a recruiter in the loop here to make sure and give it that final read. And then the last two, how is the AI getting better for what you do, is something that we encourage you to ask. How is it pre-trained? Is it fine-tuned on sort of your domain? In this case, in recruiting. And then feedback, always it comes down to the data. That's what we want you to have, is how do you know that it's working? And these things all together is what we think about, sort of like ready for the enterprise. So the bigger companies like all you are working at can actually bring these tools on, and use them safely. And then finally, and then I swear this is it, and then we'll jump into demo time here. But these are just some things that I would encourage all you to kind of take away themes to your boss and just sort of ask, as you're adopting tools, and I think I covered them most, but sort of where I always would begin with AI is sort of, where is your team, where are recruiters spending the most time, and what takes up their day, and that is really what we've done here, is thought about what tasks take up a ton of time that we can now begin to automate, and so a lot of thought here also into the upskilling, training, to think about too. So I'll jump in here now into some new things that are coming into Sense, and as I tab here and change into Sense here, one point that I'll make here is we don't see generative AI as one big product, right? I'll show you a bit today, but it's not the extent of what we're doing. What we're going to do is that really generative AI, as Neerav said so well, is going to be that personal assistant that's really woven into the experience that you do, and can be what you use in your day-to-day tools. So let me show you here a couple things that we've built here, and then we'll jump in. So let me find, actually, so I'm going to begin over here first, with we'll go back. Sorry about that. So great. So thinking about sort of what do we spend all day working on as recruiters? So we thought about this, and we'll kind of walk through a day-to-day here. But one is JD, so job descriptions, right? Always the first thing for a job when a new rec comes in, or you're talking to the hiring manager and they say, hey, we want to hire a medical piston here. You can also see here that this is all like auditable and saved. So versus your team going out to a tool, you're not sure where this is coming from, you'll know what got generated when, and then so you can come back and maybe check that. If there's a complaint, it's all very audited here. So I'm going to go ahead and type in here. Great. I'm looking for a medical assistant. It's a more senior one, let's say 5 years of experience. And it's in ortho. And I'm only doing that because I broke my foot 2 months ago, and I've talked to a lot of these folks. So let's see the way that they get hired. So you can see here that we immediately generate a nice JD, right? It's something that you could begin with here. You definitely might want to add to it, and you might want to customize it for the job. But it's something that we could publish. It's based on obviously what we know about your company, your location, the types of jobs that we see you doing, and we're giving you something here. So I'm just kind of scrolling here. I'm seeing the responsibilities. Okay, these look good. Requirements. Let's say I want more, right? Like generally what I know about, JJDs and publishing them is, generally more keywords are good, right? So I'm kind of gonna go ahead here, and you can see that what we've done with the AI here is that it's always sort of analyzing the JD2. So it's not really just a one and done. Even if you already have one written, you can go ahead and copy that in here, and we're going to make suggestions that you can use to make it better. I might want to say, great, I want patient care record keeping is common, right? And that's not, for some reason, that wasn't captured here. And I think this sort of kind of back and forth, multi-shot is often the way to get to something really good. It's not just that, first try. So I've got something here that I think is good. We might want to make some changes, but I'll go ahead and copy it. And what would we do next? So often the next step here would be, okay, I now need to actually find the candidates in Sense. For those of you who use Sense, you know how that works. And I need to screen them. So I'm going to go ahead and take this JD. It might be that I'm on a recruiting desk and I haven't ever, worked with this type of candidate. I generally work with doctors or nurses, and I've not actually, recruited for the assistance yet. But I can take this, and it's going to take its time and really, really analyze here. And again, it's kind of spit out, some, really good things that we might want to begin with here when we're talking to candidates. So how many years, these look good. I might say, this one isn't that helpful. It's sort of a throwaway. I might just ask that. I'm not gonna ask this, so I can change it. I also can enhance it here if I want. So again, I can do a grammar check. I can change the tones if I want to make it casual or more professional. We won't do that now, but what's really cool here is, so I'm done. I might want to add a question it didn't pick up, but I can go ahead and I can actually make my Sense chatbot here. So you can see how we went from really, hey, I got a new job in, my boss is telling me that we have to get going on this now. And I got basically from just a job title to a chatbot, in Sense that could be sent out to candidates over text with all the Sense's tools. I got there in just like a few minutes here. So we're really excited about that. Again, thinking about how this might let somebody who's newer on the team kind of go from, again, just job rec to hire much faster, and not have to be that kind of tech expert that you may have had to be before. So now I can build this, I can change it up. Again, it's all editable. I might want to add more that our bot can do, like calendaring and so on. But again, this is now a fully built and featured bot. So that is kind of one flow that we think that we can just save you tons of time on. And then the other area is sort of what can we help our teams to kind of write content here. So here I am in Sense Engage. I've just tabbed to Sense Engage, and you'll be prompted to use the new AI. So you can use this in lots of ways, but one really cool thing about this in Sense is that we kind of know a lot about what you're trying to do. So we knew that this was a touch point, just based on what you had told us. It was a touch point to kind of reach out to candidates. So you can see here, it's written it again. I can change all it. I can add certain tones. I can re-prompt it, but it knows what you're doing in Sense. It knows about the journey that you're building. And then we've gone again from just this content and all your variables, so you're ready to go. So again, we believe that many more people on your teams will be able now to build these types of journeys that you weren't able to before. And then just finally, we'll go into texting here. Again, a kind of tool that the bulk of the team is using on the day-to-day. I can go in here, if I'm having this conversation with a candidate, Neerav mentioned, sort of like auto paragraph, now, I can just go in and say, great. Oh, great. I know they're going to the interview next. So I'm going to, prompt it here and just kind of get something in fast. We know your name, we know a bit about the jobs that they're talking to, maybe the location. And again, we've gotten to something here that can be sent very fast. With texting too, it's really exciting. There's a lot more function here, but I can do a ton of things around tone. I'm sure that some of know, but not all. But people are writing. I see some really terrible texts. I see a lot of $signs, all caps, angry texts. And again, the AI generation here is here to kind of help kind of prompt our teams towards making the kind of best content faster. So there's a lot here that you'll be able to dive into in Sense. I not gone through it all, but just want to give you a taste here. This is all out now for some customers, and if you aren't in the rollout yet and you would like to be added faster, you'll be able to ping us, and we can get you going. But there's a lot more to come, and we're really excited to see the way that you guys use this. So thank you for checking it out today. I see some questions here that we'll take first, and if you want to ask more, jump on in. I think we got to a couple. I'll just pick some here. So I'm trying to read these. I see one here, sort of how can this kind of new world of generative AI, how can it be used for job matching, and kind of, going from a resume to a JD? And I think that my answer on that is that I think that can be quite good at that, and that's like definitely something that we're doing more with it sense too, kind of getting into the search pillar that we talked about. I think there's a ton of potential here to have a more broad search with AI, whereas before, if we were only searching for certain keywords or certain job names that we're not experts on, that we're able to kind of capture a lot more here. So a lot of potential there with search, and that's definitely something that I think that you'll see being part of Sense, too. There's a question here, sort of, will there be any stages in our recruiting process that aren't touched by AI? So, I mean, my answer, my kind of, partial, like, expert answer would be that I think that this is going to touch it all, in the next few years. I think that, when you look at the value chain from sourcing all the way to hire, I think that there's really potential here. I don't know, but I'll toss it also to you, Neerav. Are there things that you would stay away from, or things that it's not so good at?
Yeah, I think it will affect a lot of it. And then I think there are some things that happen in the process that are probably just much better, mostly done by humans. So, the closing meeting where you're really trying to land a candidate and talk to them about why they should work at your company or so forth. Like, I don't think you want to outsource that to the virtual assistant. And so, I think in terms of getting information out, processing information, writing text, responding to text, all that stuff can be automated in a much easier way. But the human intuition and connection, I think, will still be a big part of HR over the long haul.
Yeah, cool. So I've got one here, and actually I'm interested to give this to you first. In the future, do you believe that AI will be better at people than at making the hiring decisions?
It's a great question. The AI is as good as you can give it data for. And so one thing you could imagine, in a large enough company or with different data sets, is you could go through and like tag all the people who really worked out at that company, all the people who didn't. And then there might be ways to draw correlations and potentially causations that humans might not have picked up, but models did. I think the tricky part about all this is you never, let me see if I can say this right. So let's just say we gave the model 10,000 examples of a successful hire and 10,000 examples of an unsuccessful hire. And then you retrained it on that, and then it started giving you predictions. The worry you could get is, let's say there was something totally random. Like, this wouldn't be the case in 10,000, but like everybody with the middle name Anthony ended up being a good employee. And now the model just thinks, wow, if somebody's middle name's Anthony, like, they're going to crush it. And that would obviously not be a very good lead. And so I think that's the thing you want to be careful about large data sets, is like, how can you keep on using them, refining them, testing them, to make sure the thing the model is learning, quote unquote, is actually connected to the actual outcome. And the more we can do that, then I think the more the model will get very good at giving recommendations.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, and I mean, I'll just say, like, how we think about this at Sense, is, one is that we don't think at this point in time that the AI model should be making any, like, hiring decisions. Things might change. We don't know what's gonna happen in 5 years, but I think it's very important to be skeptical, actually, of people telling you that, and that's where things can get kind of dangerous. So again, it's really recruiter in the loop. Again, these tools making them better at their jobs, making it faster. But again, we should have people at the end here, who are kind of doing that stamp. And this is important, I think, both for just ethical reasons and for compliance, too. We're seeing more and more laws come out, like the New York City bias law will launch in July, where again, it's very careful and, about these kinds of tools, like when they're making an actual decision and what you need to do. So, thinking about that, the way that you can audit that, the way you can test for bias is, very key. Okay, I'm seeing a few. I'll kind of try to combine ones here. I'm seeing some cool questions here about the generation of data, and can we actually make it more company specific and more kind of curated to our tone, and what our company is and business model. And then one of sort of, can we make the prompts more specific too, so you're not limited. And yeah, I mean, I'd say the answer to both is yes. I mean, that's something that we're thinking a lot about since, one example is via the chatbot, how we can actually pull in information about your company, so we can look at a like FAQ, maybe a company handbook, maybe your website, and kind of hold that in to kind of train the models, to prompt the models to do something that feels more like you. And I think that's very critical, because we don't want to end up here where just everyone's on the same tool. I'll just use the one that a lot of people use, that everyone is typing the same things into Chat GPT in a tab, and then we're all sounding the same. I think that's kind of the way that we build these things, and the way that we'll think about building them can be really helpful here to kind of make sure that your team is actually generating good content, not just generating content. So a lot of thinking there. I think some is done. You saw some of that in the demo, but then there's more to come to, as these things get better. Has the frequency impacted roadmap, and sort of how often that changes? Yeah, I mean, I would say yes. And I think the amazing thing about kind of working with a partner like Neerav and these companies is that we're able to kind of move faster and build these experiences for you guys. And so one thing that I would ask is for all of our current customers here, and even ones that might be prospects, is we do want to hear from you. And so it's a very possible that if we obviously learn a lot about the roadmap for customers, and we change it based on that. So we would love to learn more about what is really taking that time, and then maybe we can build it for you faster. All right, I'll take one more here before we end, and actually a really good one. And maybe it's something that about. It's sort of what can we do to cut through candidates using AI to make their CVs and application answers? So really good, cool kind of point here, that it's actually on both sides of the table here, and we as recruiters kind of need to be cognizant of that. And maybe there are tools that we can help with or point you towards to analyze that. But Neerav, have you seen anything around detection, or is that just impossible now and it's just a new world?
It's hard. The live interview will be more important in the sense of if it's
Good
written
point.
beforehand, there's obviously more room for this. And there's two things just technically that are out there that people are working on. One is training models to detect if a model has written it. So you basically ask the model, does this look AI generated? And there's people making that. Still in its infancy, like I don't think the accuracy is where we'd want it yet. And then the second is what we would call watermarking, where you could tell, and this is a little easier in images, but like any text that was generated by an AI, you would be able to like go to check on and know that it was. And so both of those are out there. I think for a host of reasons, from education to national security to political, figuring out a way on images and text to get authenticity is really, really important. So I don't think it's solved right now, but there's a lot of smart people working on it.
Yeah, really a good point though, Claire, who put that in. I mean, that's definitely something that I think Sense can think about, because I do think this will become more common, and you want to, make sure that you're getting the best assessment out of a candidate. So great. So we're right on time here. Thank you for those who joined. We'll send out the recording. And thank you, Neerav, for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks all.
Take care, everyone.